Okay, we are in Tzidkas Hatzadik Os Nun. We've been learning for a few weeks. In the last few osos, we've been learning, the iyun, the classic Rav Tzadok ideas of how sometimes you think something is very bad and it's really good, all based in Reish Lakish's great vart of Kol HaGadol Mechaver Yitzray Gadol Mimanu, one of his classic, Rav Tzadok's classic proofs that it's not that you happen to be challenged with the Yetzer Hara. Kol HaGadol Mechaver Yitzray Gadol Mimanu means that that's a tool. Your Yetzer Hara is a tool for greatness, and we spent a long time explaining that. Also, another one of his great proof texts is Ein Divrei Torah Miskayim El L'Misha Nichshal Behem, that somehow or another the derech of Talmud Torah is such that if you don't make a big mistake, you're not going to get to the real truth. And nobody wants to make that mistake, and it's embarrassing when you make the mistake, which we're going to talk a little bit about now. But in fact, it wakes you up to realizing, not so pashut, I got to be more careful, however you want to understand it. But Rav Tzadok very, very deeply and Kabbalistically explained, we talked about it last week, that it's not like you learn from your mistakes. That's also true. But the nichshal behem is the same as the Yetzer Hara, which is the nichshal behem is like a tool in the depth of understanding. Also going way back, just one more thing, that we said that this is the pshat, according to Reb Tzadok, when you do tshuva, me'ahava zdolos nasa k'schuyos, meaning that that's like some kind of a magical Zerus HaKosav, zdolos nasa k'schuyos. No, that's not the pshat, is that all of a sudden, if you do tshuva correctly, so the Averos b'mezid, Zdonos, that we've done become tools in our toolbox, somehow or another that makes us into greater people. So I'm not going to review all that, but that is what we learned. We're going into a slightly different topic here, which comes around to Reb Tzadok, but a very fascinating topic. Al kol minei Yeshua shel Hashem Yisparach ois nun. Every different type of Yeshua that Hashem gives to a person, we're talking about private people. We're not talking about necessarily like Israel or Bnei Yisrael or the Gula, just private people, you and me. Hashem gives us Yeshuas. We have down times, we have up times, and Hashem helps us. So applies the Yesod, says the Tzidkas Hatzadik of Yesh Be'ita V'Achishala. Just like you have Be'ita V'Achishala by the Geula, so too you have Be'ita Achishala in our personal lives. Right there we have a fantastic Yesod. And I love to digress because it gives me an opportunity to talk about things I never get a chance to talk about. So it's kind of like not really digression. But this Be'ita V'Achishana, which is already like Yeshiva Sharei, Be'ita Achishana, means that there's two ways. We all know what it means. There's two ways for the Geula. Right now, let's say we're in the Zman of the Geula. We're very close to the Geula. So in the Geula, there's two ways. There's a way called Be'ita. There's a way called Achishana. Be'ita means it's at the right time. Achishana means it's before the right time. The word chish means maher, hurried, quickly. That's what the word yachish la'amtzach. You find this word through Tanakh, that chish lanu yesha. So it means like make it quick, rapid movement. That's what's so be'ita achishana. I know we all say the words, we probably know Tanakh very, very well, but I just want to go over with you for a couple of minutes the context of that pasuk, Yeshayahu. And we know these psukim because, what?
That there is a way that things come in their right time, and there's a way that things come before their right time.
Exactly. In other words, on the simplest level, let's talk about the Gula. On the simplest level, there's a deadline. That deadline, let's say it's 6,000 years or whatever, he's going to tell us the deadline is different. But let's say the deadline is 6,000 years. That's what we're accustomed to hearing, right? The world was created. It's a 6,000-year project. And at 6,000 years, now we're 5,784. So at the end of 6,000 years, deadline. That's it. There's got to be a Gula. The project's over. The game's over. The show is over. No more world. Maybe if, I always mention maybe if the, the negative historians are correct and our counting is 200 years off, or 160 years off. So maybe we're like really right there. But that cheshbon is a cheshbon of be'ita. There's an eis ha'geula. I wonder aloud for a moment. We've even learned together here that the Vilna Gaon has in the Safra Tznius and the spiritual Safra Tznius has all kinds of cheshbonos about when Mashiach is coming. What year, what day, based on Bereshis, based on V'zos HaBracha. There's all kinds of things that the Vilna Gaon says, and of course, his Talmidim have brought it so far as the modern state of Israel. But what I'm not sure, I'm just wondering, maybe you're sure, but I'm not sure, if all of this discussion is about Be'ita or it's about Achishela. Is the Gaon explaining? Was the Gaon telling us what's the final ace of the Gula, but it can come Achishela? Or was he telling us that he thinks the Gula will be this and this, whether it's Be'ita, whether it's Achishela? That's what it will be.
Achishela, good reasons, bad reasons.
So unclear, right? But it's Zocha Achishela. You have to be Zocha to it. Well, so that's my question. That's exactly my question. To Achishela. Otherwise, there's a deadline. What do you pray? So, I'm just saying that the.
Maybe the deadline can move.
What?
Maybe the deadline can move.
Then you don't need Be'ita Achishela. It'll say, okay, it's a fluid deadline.
You also have all these Rishonim who gave a date. Ban gave a date.
Exactly. So I'm just asking out loud. What were they talking about? With the Hashem Yidin Koyb Dabab, the Jews in the concentration camps and in the trains were singing Ani Mabed Mabuda Shleim of the V'yas HaMashiach. Were they talking about we're talking about Achishel? Okay.
Otherwise, they were.
What are you singing a song about? Right.
Right, we got into Egypt early.
Early, so that was like Achishel.
That tells me that was Achishel. It was good. We had no choice.
I'm giving you this as a Marabakum, even if you know it again. But Yeshayahu in Parak Samach, Yeshayahu, I think I might have mentioned last week, Yeshayahu was just a fascinating, I sound so secular when I say this, but he was a fascinating personality. In other words, he was obviously a man of God, living through the most difficult times. Achaz HaMelech, we talked about last week, Achaz HaMelech, and on the other hand, Chizkiyahu, and then, Menashe, he was Menashe's grandfather, then Menashe killed him, and, he was for many, many years, he was a Navi, he was the Navi, there were a lot of other Naviim in his time also, but he was like the Navi, chief rabbi of Bnei Yisrael, and it was like the Moshe Rabbeinu, and he was very, very strong, and Hashem spoke to him, and at all costs, he imparted this message. Even it was like Esther Amalka. Even though Achaz could have easily chopped off his head, it did. Menashe did. For saying nevuah. They didn't want to hear this. They wanted to go in their evil way. But anyways, in Siman Samach, amongst others, this is in Parshas Kisavai, this is our Haftarah. So. Shav de Nachamosa, right? So it says here, just give me a couple of sukkim, where Yeshayahu really just describes, everybody's wondering, what's going to happen when the Geula happens? And then Rav Tzadok brings it down to our personal level. What's going to happen when there's a Geula? And, our final answer is, like the Rambam says, nobody knows that, Einadam Yodea B'Shiyah, okay, nobody knows, but then there's stuff that we do know. And Yeshayahu talks about it. How is it going to play out, and what are some of the halachas going to be? But Yeshayahu says, Kumi ori kiva orech. Familiar? Ukvod Hashem alayich zarach. He's talking to the Bnei Yisrael. The Bnei Yisrael, the Klal Yisrael, Jewish people, were in a difficult situation at this time. They were in a low, in a low time, in a sinful time, worshiping Avodah Zarah. That's the context or the backdrop of Yeshayahu talking. And he says, Kumi Ori Kiva Orech, your light will be coming. Ukvaid Hashem alayich zarach, and the covenant of Hashem will shine upon you. Ki hinei achoshech, there's going to come a time, this is really the pasuk I want to spend a minute on. Hinei achoshech, there's going to come a time, says Yeshayahu, and you can relate it as you wish. Hachoshech yichase eretz, that darkness will cover the whole earth. Va'arofel, what's arofel? Clouds, a fog. A fog will cover the umim. So there's two things here. Achoshech yichase eretz, is going to come a time that there's going to be a great darkness in the world. Va'arofel lu'umim, but a great fogginess. Fogginess to me in the Pashat of Shop means lack of clarity. Yep. But at the same time that there's going to be darkness in the world and there's going to be fogginess in everybody's brain, alayich yizrach Hashem. On you, Hashem will shine. You, that means us. Ukvaydai, and his covenant, alayich yera'eh. And what will happen will be, at the time of the Gula, this is Yeshayahu predicting, Holchu goyim la'oirech, that the goyim of the world will walk in your light. U'melachim lenoga zarchech. You know, this is not happening right now, but you can see it happening. You can see it happening. That there's a certain, you certainly see the darkness, and we certainly see the arofel. And during that time of Geula, this is the main point of Geula. The main point of Geula is that, but the Jews will shine with the light of Hashem. During that dark time, there'll be this singular light, and that light will be called Bnei Yisrael, and eventually all of the goyim of the world will recognize that light and walk in its path. Look around with your eyes. You'll be able to look around your eyes. And everybody's gathering around Eretz Yisrael and the Jews to follow you. Your own children who traveled so far away from Yiddishkeit, they're also going to come. And your daughters, everybody's going to come. I want to point to you for a moment the Malbim. I happened to go through this parak. I wasn't feeling well this week, and I went through this parak. I was just fascinated with the description of the Geula. It goes on and on for about 20 psukim. And I looked through it with the Malbim, but I want to share with you one Malbim. The Malbim says, first pasuk, you know, the Malbim's always taking apart words, synonyms. So, what's the difference between choshech and arofel? Avraham already explained. HaChoshech hu heder or. What is choshech? No light, dark. V'harofel, but fogginess, fog. Heim edim v'kiturim hamemalim as ha'aver. This is talking about certain vapors and clouds that are in the air. Gambe shashemesh zarech, even though the sun is shining. So one is talking about when the sun is not shining, one's talking about the sun is shining. V'hanimshal. This is what it means. Ki achoshech yichase eretz. Darkness will cover the earth. Umoy she'en lahem das cloud. That darkness, that's referring to nations which have no religion at all. They're just secular. Is that the right word? En lahem das cloud. Mishalom doime, and to them it's as if ki'ilu achoshech machasa oisem she'en roy mar cloud. They see no light. In other words, we'll live at a time where a big part of the world will be simply walking in darkness, no light at all. So that's called Yichase Eretz. However, Arofel, for some, there will be not Choshech, but Arofel. Who's that? So the Malbim, when did the Malbim live? Yeah. 18, early 1800s, I think. V'al'umim zemetzayin am Yishmael. This is talking about the Yishmael. Sheyesh lam das. They do have a religion. Arafel. Why is it fog and not darkness? So the Malbim says with Yishmael, Yesh lam das. They do have a religion. Umaminim ba'achtus. They believe that there's only one God. Ugmul. And they believe in Olam Haba. Or V'chadoma, things like that. Yimliץ, and it comes out, Shashem is Zareach Halafkim, their son. The son is out. They've got the basic tenets of belief. Rak, their son, it's daytime with their son, Rak ha'arafel mimalei ha'avir. The problem is that there's fogginess. Shehu, what does that fogginess look like? What does it look like when there's fog? The answer is, it looks like shu pinois koizvais, a lot of sheker, shenimsa bemunasim, which are found within their religion, and the reason for that is, he says the Malbim, mehakoshes habechira, because they really don't believe in bechira. I'm not an Islamist. I don't know what exactly their shita, the Muslim shita on bechira chofshis is, but what he's saying is that if you don't believe in anything, you don't believe in Olam Haba, you don't believe in Hashem, you don't believe in Achdus Hashem, that's choshech. If you believe in all those things, but you don't believe in Bechira, that's called Arafel. And when like you've ever been driving in a thick fog, like you make mistakes. You make a lot of mistakes. And Eilam Bechira, as far as I can see, means that you judge right is wrong and wrong is right, and you're all mixed up. It's all a big fog, and the world that takes this on, in other words, the oilam that takes this on, is taking on a situation of fog, a lack of clarity. It's so. I mean, obviously it's relatable, but the point I'm making that's relatable is that even somebody who's very, very clear in their thinking can look, for instance, at social media, get confused. You can get confused. Well, maybe this, maybe that, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Like, there's no right. It's a very, very simple wrong. But if you have or, it's a simple wrong. If you crawl into the Arafel, which is very interesting biblically, this Arafel. But if you crawl into the Arafel, everything becomes unclear, and that's the situation. And for clarity, I go back to Yeshayahu, what a fantastic Malbim. For the sake of clarity, this is the Geula. And the Geula will be that everyone will come to the Bnei Yisrael, says Yeshaya, for that clarity. They're going to come to us to look for that moral clarity, for what's right and what's wrong in this world, because it's going to become so mixed up and so confusing. Yeah. When people know how to choose, is that what you mean? When people learn how to choose, and they learn from us being their moral compass, that's called the Geula.
I don't want to about Islam either, but I don't want to for sure the Kehillas Shivtei
The chosen people, yeah, it's different.
It's the same thing, right? The Machri shall hope with the chosen Islam, so open the
No, but I don't think that's the Bechira he's talking about.
maybe the Bechira has to do with in the Arab culture. So there's like a dominance factor. Like the male is dominant over the female, the leaders are dominant over the people. In other words, God is like this angry God that you better listen to, as opposed to in Yiddish we have more called Bechira, because Yishmael is a loving God. He also has din, and he also has...
I think it's true. I think it's true, and I think it's more than that.
You don't really have a choice to do what God says. You must do it, otherwise...
Right. I think that we're blessed with some sensibility, and we can understand intuitively what can be right and what is simply wrong. And we're not only permitted, but commanded and get schar for thinking about this. In other words, if there's no Bechira, So there's no Olam Haba, there's no anything, as Tzadok said a couple of days. The whole thing doesn't begin without Bechira. What are you doing? But I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I want you to, going through. But at the end of this whole beautiful nevuah, Hashem la'or olam ve'likayach l'sifartech. Hashem yelach la'or olam v'sholmu yemei evlech. And he says, Ba'amech kulam tzadikim, famous pasuk, and the Jews that will be alive during that time, as the Metzudah said, Ma'ama nishar bach yu kulam tzadikim. Ba'amech, what's going to happen is there'll be some kind of Baal Tshuva movement, let's call it in our language. Amech kulam tzadikim, la'olam yirshu aretz, and they will be able to be Yoresh Pashat Pshat Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Netzar Batoy Basa Yodai Lispar. At that point, Hakohen, this is the last pasuk of the Nevuah. Again, it's 22 psukim, but Hakohen Yeh Elef. V'hatzoyer l'goy atzum, that the katoin, those that are small, meaning the Jewish people, yel aleph, will be gigantic. Aleph really means strong. It's a word for 1,000, but it means strong. V'hatzoyer, and this small nation, this young nation, yel l'goy atzum, will become a very powerful nation. Ani Hashem, Yeshayahu says everything I've just described to you seems like so far-fetched in the situation that he was in at the time. So he ends off, and this is how the Malbim and everybody explains it. When he has to end off with saying, "Listen, nothing is impossible for Hashem. Ani Hashem, I'm talking in the name of Hashem, and be'ita achishana." And that's the context. Malbim says, Agav Shah Katoin Yel Elef Beriboy Akamus. That which is small will become large in terms of quantity. V'hatzoyer B'koach, and those that have no strength, Hatzoyer has no strength. Yel Goy Otzum will have a lot of strength. All of a sudden will be very powerful. Beriboy ha'echos means qualitatively. So there's going to be a quantitative growth of the Jewish people, and there's also going to be a growth in the koach that we have, that we're not so nebuch. The koach va'atzma. V'gam sha'ani mitmamea ha'ata. And he's saying in the name of Yeshayahu, I myself don't see how this is going to happen, because it looks so opposite right now. V'ha'am chaloshim u'ma'atim, everybody's so weak and we're so small. Hidei ani Hashem be'ita achishana. I'm telling you that this is Hashem talking. I'm giving you a nevuah from Hashem. Be'ita achishana bevo ha'es hamyoedes, at the right time. Esa hadavar bizrizus. I will do this quickly, Hashem says. Ki zeh geder poyel chish. That's what chish means. Va'amale es haftachasi, I will keep my promise. So this is the context. I'm just, everybody throws around B'ita Chishana, B'ita Chishana. This is the context of B'ita Chishana. It's time, Achishano, I will make it work quickly. That's what the words mean. When the right time comes, it'll happen fast. Don't worry about it. That's what Yeshayahu is telling us. Comes to Gemara in Sanhedrin, it says, Pasuk is a stiro b'nei ubei. That be'ita, right? Rabiksi, Reb Levi, Rabiksi. It's a stira b'nei ubei. If it's be'ita, it's not achishana. If it's achishana, it's not be'ita. In other words, to the Gemara, understanding the nuance of the psukim and Yeshayahu, the Gemara asks the question, okay, look, that which way is it? Be'ita is mashma, that there's a deadline and there's a set time, and that's when the gula is going to happen. Achishana says, don't worry about it, make it quick. Well, what's to make it quick? The deadline is the deadline. Well,
also we're out of puzzle.
Seder, but there it didn't say be'ita. It didn't say. Here it says that the Geula is going to be Be'ita. Project over. Deadline is here. So says the Gemara, well-known answer. The words of the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Alexandri. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Rami. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said it was a contradiction. Ksiv be'ita. Uksiv achishana. If you don't read the parak, you think this isn't two different svarim, right next to each other. Be'ita achishana. Zachu achishana. So the answer is like this. If we are zoche achishana, it'll happen quickly. Lo zachu, if we're not zacha, be'ita, then it will happen at its right time. So the correct way, says the Gemara, to understand the pasuk is that there are two possibilities for the Geula. One possibility for the Geula and everything that I just described, says Yeshaya, is that it'll happen be'ita. And also, that's the Haftach of Hashem, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen, meaning at the deadline. You can't go past that deadline. Project over. Curtains closed. That's it. But there are also possibilities, said Yeshayahu opened up this possibility of Achishana, that it can also happen quickly. So there are two different possibilities, Sanhedrin Tzaddik Ches.
That's different than the Pshat. Pshat is the Ito, it'll happen quickly.
That's different than the Pshat. In fact, if you look at the Pashat Pshat on the blot, like Rashi and the Marikar, Be'ita bevoy eis hayeshua lo ta'acher. Don't worry, I won't go past deadline on this one. But Chazal understand it differently, that there's two possibilities of Be'ita achishana, which opens up a place for ani mamin be'emunah shlema, afal pi sheyisma beya, which opens up a place for all kinds of, we want Mashiach now slogans, meaning that we don't want to wait. Is that how it goes? I kind of said that by accident, but and I think people like Ramat Shemesh, they were like pushing the achishana, like that's what they're pushing. They want to wait till the be'ita, which is whatever. What the Grow was explaining, I'm not even sure. You got to be by it again into whether the Grow was explaining be'ita or his prediction for achishana. Lo barur. Pashtus, it was be'ita. He was talking about be'ita, last possible moment for the Geula. So comes Reb Tzadok. Let's take it further. When is this be'ita?
Yeah, when is be'ita that Hashem is going to, at that moment, do it quickly.
But
that's the Pashat.
That is the Pashat Pshat.
That's what the Gemara is.
Well, it's not exactly the Pashat Pshat. I mean, the way the Mefarshim say it, the more exact Pshat in the Pasuk is, when be'ita comes, I'm not going to delay it, meaning that, well, maybe we won't be zoch at that time, and I'm going to have to push it off. Yes, the deadline is here. Like, we don't make deadlines, so maybe I shouldn't. So be'ita achishana, don't worry. When it comes to ita, there's no...
So it's not like when Yosef got out of jail, so they were Meir from the board. It's not a characteristic of what the final looks like.
In the Pashat Pshat, Yeshua Hashem Karavayim. But what the Gemara is taking apart for us here, let's go with the not Pashat Pshat. What the Gemara is taking apart for us is the two different zmanim. It could be 1,000 years difference. Be'ita achishana. I mean, I think we're in a pretty good position now because we're holding both by be'ita and by achishana.
Well, you have to say it was achishana because the state was about 1840. He tried to come. Talmidim came, and it was. So if that's ita, then he was wrong.
Unless he thought, okay, time to start preparing is a few hundred years away.
But he said, I thought he had a date. They were coming right away.
I know. Okay, now. Let's go back to Tzidkas Hatzadik, because we can talk about Mashiach all day. Well, let's go to the Tzidkas Hatzadik. Tzidkas Hatzadik is a chiddush nifla, as far as I know. I've never seen anywhere else. That just like there's two possibilities for the Geula. Also, in our personal lives, there's constant needs for Yeshua, be it medically, financially, shalom bayis, whatever, pick your Yeshua. A lot of people have multiple needs for Yeshua. And Kreva Yeshuasi Lavai, we have betachan that Hashem is going to give us all whatever it is that we need in this world. And, as Chaim quotes me, nobody's without suffering. Nobody's, we don't be too many people of anybody that just like gets off the hook, because the whole purpose of life is to be able to get through this. But Kadosh Baruch Hu has a plan. It's not like a torture chamber. It's not forever. So just like everybody has an itai, here's the chiddush, a deadline to your tzaras, kates to your tzaras. Everybody also has an achishena, which really is good news, but it confuses. It's very confusing, because besides there's a deadline to my tzaras, who knows when that is. It always comes to my mind what it's different, but just the mashal that my Rabbi Rav Sheinberg used to always say, like in every argument or in every dispute, truth wins at the end. Truth wins. We can always rely on the fact that truth wins, but sometimes it takes a couple hundred years. So, okay, well, who has patience to wait a couple hundred? In other words, like sheker could go for a long time, and tzaras can go for a long time. So, but it says that even on a personal level, not the gula, there's be'ita and there's achishena. And then he writes in parentheses, meaning going over it the second before he published this, he wrote these parentheses, and he says, "V'chein hu be'ita," like if you want to understand be'ita l'inyan bi'as Mashiach, what does that mean? Like, what is the correct deadline? And here he again tells us a chiddush, because until this moment, in this particular discussion, I've been referring to be'ita as some year or some time. Be'ita, year 6,000. That's be'ita. Be'ita l'inyan bi'as Mashiach. When we're talking about the ace Mashiach, the deadline, it means kasher yeh hakol tzmeim liyeshuasai. Get this, it's not date dependent. It's kasher yeh hakol tzmeim liyeshuasai v'lo yeh shum eitza acheretz liyeshuas Yisrael. It means that the deadline is not about years, so it could be earlier, can't be later, I guess, but it can be earlier. The deadline is that before we die, as a people, Hashem will save us. When everybody, like everything, all else fails. We tried running, we tried fighting, we tried self-defense, we tried so many different things. And, so this is, again, reminiscent of what the Gemara says, that the time of before Mashiach comes, everybody's going to say, Ein lanu li'ishayin ela avinu shebashamayim. So it means that so the ita, here's a new definition of be'ita, is that we think we've reached the end of our rope. That's the be'ita. And hakol tzmeim liyeshuas, everybody will recognize, this is be'ita, this is the be'ita. Everybody will recognize that Hashem has to help us here, otherwise we are going to disappear. No way the Jewish people will survive. And once you understand this, says Reb Tzadok, you will finally understand so many different chazal that explain this. So I'm going to leave you to think about it, because I don't yet understand that. But when the Gemara says there at the end of Soita that that's talking about Be'ita Achishena. Hello, everybody. Be'ita, that we're going to come to a place of complete despondency. We tried everything. So that's talking about, like, we want to try to not let it get to that point.
Shouldn't it make us nervous when our leaders say the difference between now and World War II is that now we can protect ourselves?
So this is the problem. Right, nervous is not the word. This is the problem with Kehillas Shivtei Yeshurun. Like, in a certain way, look, it's a difficult position to be in, but it's pretty easy to solve, because you just acknowledge Hashem. That's all you need to do. Which, by the way, the reason why I just want to give a little Don Lekav's chus, throw out there, that the reason why that's never done is because it's politically incorrect. In other words, like the nations of the world would, if we would say that with God's help, we'll win this war, we'll remove Hamas, we'll do this, we sound like a bunch of Iranians.
He has been saying that.
He says it all the time.
He says there's Hashem
Who?
at the end of every speech.
Yeah.
Good. That's why he's so popular. That's why he's so popular in the. Yeah.
There are pictures of him on Purim
I like him. I mean, I don't know. I'm not talking politics here. I'm only saying that once you start talking about God in a military or political situation, so you start to sound like a maniac. That's all I'm saying. But in fact, I'm just saying it's no raya from the fact that they don't say that they don't believe in their hearts that everything is from Hashem. So hopefully there's not a real kochi v'al here. I get a feeling that most of those soldiers that are putting their lives on the line in Gaza believe God's good. That if there's no atheist in a foxhole, the whole country now is a foxhole. So who's not believing?
I sat in a security briefing for a certain thing about a week ago, and the person speaking said everything's mutter in politics and war as long as there's no smoking gun.
So they're covering themselves. Yeah.
As long as there's no smoking.
Okay, so politics is a different world of sheker, and not to talk about in the base matters. Achishena. So when Yeshayahu speaks about Achishena, so did you don't lose the point. Keep your attention here. That the taich of Be'ita, the translation of Be'ita, is when we have no place to go, nowhere to go, no way to save ourselves, and we all realize it's from Hashem. That's the deadline. The year is almost incidental. Achishena hainu terem yikro. What's the lashon of the pasuk? Terem yikrou v'ani eneh. Yeshayahu, another couple of pages. Terem yikrou v'ani eneh. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makdim. The Gemara explains makdim refuah lamaka. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in the prevention area of life, not just in the solving the problem. So the achishena means that okay, Klal Yisrael, you won't have to go through all that stuff. You're not going to go to a annihilation that I'm going to come pick you up at the last second, as by the way happened in Mitzrayim. So I'm not sure if that was an achishena or if that was a be'ita either, because we have to go through the whole Memta Shari Tuma, and it was just as we were, boom, about to crash to the bottom of the thing with the Shara Chamishim. That's what Hashem saved us. He didn't save us at 33 or at 21 or at Lag B'Omer, nothing. Like he saved us. He saved us just as we were about to crash. So that was, according to Rav Tzadok's understanding, Be'ita, and it was B'chipazim. So it's easy to get back to that kind of a pshat. But there's a preventative thing that, okay, I don't want you, let's take Mitzrayim because we're talking about it, I don't want you to have to go through Memtesh Shari Tuma and pogroms and Holocaust and whatever it is. Let me just save you before Terem Yikro Vani Ena. That's a different pasuk that Yeshayahu says, that even before we ask, even before we know that we're desperate, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us.
What was the schus?
How are we zoche? Let's just read the last few lines and we'll see if we're helping. V'zeh sheramaz rava l'Rav Elish. Zeh, meaning, how do I know? Let's bring a proof first. How do I know that whatever applies for the nation applies for the people, for the individual? That be'ita achishena is a concept in our own lives. Like whatever you go through right now, be'ita achishena, two possibilities. He says, I know it from the Gemara in Baba Basra, Kuf Lamed Gimel. And there, the Gemara tells a story. Ramaz Rava l'Ravila shemashakar alav be'ita achishana. What's the story of the Gemara? Briefly, sugya of a very difficult sugya of ribis, not ribis, of Yerusha, and there the sugya. So somebody left a will saying that when I die, Ruvain inherits my all my nechasim, and then he goes on to say in his will, and when he dies, when Ruvain dies, so Shimon gets everything from there, which is problematic. The Gemara says, how can it be that once Ruvain inherits it, he could go spend it. It's his. Biylä is the pshat that you could do whatever you want with it, including burn it. So, but no, I'm making a long-term Yerusha. Like you don't have that much control. That is the Gemara wants to say. So anyway, so somebody came along. Let's say Shimon. He says, okay, Ruvain got the Yerusha, and now I'm supposed to get the Yerusha because Ruvain died. Nice case. And Rav Elish was, let's get the picture here, in Nahardah, Bavel. So Rava was the biggest Rosh Yeshiva with the biggest yeshiva around. Rava was a huge, I don't know what to tell you about Rava. He was, there's not a lot of Gemara without Rava and Abaya. Rava was a huge Rosh Yeshiva. And Rav Elish was a tzaddik, and he was a Talmud of Rava. And the case came into the Beis HaMedrash. Who gets the Yerusha? Comes Rav Elish, and Rav Elish, who's brought a few times in Shas, Rav Elish says, he's right, it should go to Shimon, the money should go to Shimon. And Rava, the Rosh Yeshiva, looks at him and the whole Beis Medrash, and he says, no, that's not the halacha. We have a Messiah that a Yerusha only goes one generation, Yerusha doesn't go many generations, and Rava corrects him, and, as the Gemara, embarrasses him in front of the whole Beis Medrash, in front of Rava's Beis Medrash. What are you paskening something which is against Ravacha? We already have this Messiah from Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara goes on and on in Baba Basra about how wrong he was.
Rava embarrassed Rav Elish?
Rava embarrassed Rav Elish. The Rebbe embarrassed the Talmud. What are you paskening when you don't know what you're talking about? Basically, that's what he said. Rav Elish reports the Gemara was very, very embarrassed by this. And very, very upset, frustrated that he had made a mistake. I mean, the Gemara says two things happened. First of all, he was embarrassed in public, but he didn't have a time. Like I really paskened wrong, which, by the way, if you're ever in a situation of paskening, and then you realize that I just to share something personal for a second. That remember when I first got married, and it was like the first Shaila and Hilchos Nida or something like that. And I would, you're a chassid, you learn Hilchos, you learn these halachas, be'iyun. And I remember coming to it seems to me to be very clear. I just want to verify with the Rosh Yeshiva. And he said to me, you're looking at the Shaila completely wrong. You completely missed the sugya, you missed the shaila, you missed everything. I was going to sink through that. I remember where I was standing, and he was right. It occurred to me at that moment the responsibility of psak. That it's just very easy to blah blah blah, to throw out a psak, and one can never be embarrassed to say, I don't know, I need to look into it. It's a huge responsibility. But how it's so possible without a lot of experience, a lot of learning, it's so possible to just mix up and mess up the whole thing because your mind tells you this or your mind tells you that. So this was the experience of Rav Elish in the Beis HaMedrash of Rava. Rava sees, the Gemara says, you can take a look at this Gemara, Kuf Lav and Gimel. Rava sees that his Talmud was embarrassed and extremely frustrated by the situation. So he says to him, listen, Elish, great name, no? It sounds like he's from Poland or something. Elish, he says, Be'ita achishena. That's what Rava tells him. Be'ita achishena. What does it mean? What was he telling him here? Telling him was about the Geula? That's how you learned it? Very good.
His learning will come.
Be'ita achishanas comes the Rashbam. First of all, it tells us the Rashbam is above Basra. That's the Rashi of Basra there. Comes the Rashbam, and he says that that Rava wanted to give comfort to Rav Ilush. She felt bad for him. And he tells him, Be'ita achishena, that don't worry, even though, this is the way the Rashbam says it, word for word, even though you were not zocha to learn halacha properly, and you acted like an idiot in Abarts, nevertheless, so you were not zocha, this is important for us, you were not zocha to the achishena, but thank God I caught it. I caught it before it came Lamaisa and they made the bank transfer. So there was a be'ita here. So this was comforting him. You understand the comfort? Like, okay, you weren't zocha. Oh, so let's get it clear here. Rabbi said, don't worry, I'm here.
If I was a dinner, Rabbi saying...
Because we would have had a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Catastrophe. Somebody's taking money that they don't get. Catastrophe. So which is a be'ita achishena? Let's just get it clear in our minds over here. So the way the Rashbam says, he says, if you would have been zocha, you would have learned drape shot, and you would have heard all the proper, Messiahs, so then achishena, you would have chopped it for ice. You would have gotten it earlier. But being that you missed all that, you were not zocha, the deadline is when they're about to transfer the money. So right before the transfer the money, I'm here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mazmin me and this situation to come up in my base medrash, and I was able to chop it quickly. So if you're frustrated, Ilish, about the fact that, oh my gosh, I might be posketing wrong for people, you don't have to worry about it, because you see Hashem protects you. Which is kind of like like, don't worry that you're an Amaretz. Like, Hashem will protect you and people won't listen to you. Yeah. It's a funny kind of right. Rashbam says, Kara, I have his brief lashon here, Rashbam, Kara alav Rava lenachamai. So Rava wanted to be menachem him, and he said, Ani Hashem be'ita achishena, be'eshat tzadikim tzrichen liyeshua HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamsi lahem. When you're really desperate for Yeshua, meaning the last minute the psak din is going to go through, Hashem will help you. Af ata, you too, no michshel will ever come out of you, even though you don't know what you're talking about. You see, Hashem put me here to save the day. So then isn't
Rava the achishena? Before the itav, there's a mistake. Achishena, Rava saved it.
No. The achishena would have been, if you would have learned the sugya correctly, paskin correctly, that you were zocha. But if you're not zocha to do the right thing or to come up with the right thing, so I'm your be'ita over here. Right, I'm your safety net. So I'm your safety net, and I'm going to help you. Agav, if I could just take a minute here, I just want to tell you something I once heard that it's a fascinating Gemara, but we don't find it any other place. Somebody asked this question, I don't remember who. You don't find it any other place that whenever somebody makes a mistake, we tell them, Ita achishena. It's like a strange thing. What Rav Tzadok wants to bring from this is you see that you see what Rav Tzadok's raya from this Gemara is that according to Rava, Be'ita achishena is not only going on the national Yeshua, but also on the personal Yeshua. And you see Be'ita achishena, a pasuk in Yeshayahu, Rava applied to Rav Ilush. That's the raya from this Gemara. But what's the pshat of the Gemara itself? So Rav Ilush is very interesting. What's for this pshat? The Gemara says in Gittin. Where's Gittin? Gittin comes before Kedushin. Why?
Yes.
Davar nifla that a get can be called a refuah. I'll just tell you this Gemara while I'm here. The Gemara says in Gittin Memhei, learn Gittin, you know this Gemara. But not say to Rav Nachman, very quickly, but not say to Rav Nachman, Bachashan Kidra b'yadayu, that there was a situation where the daughters of Rav Nachman, the holy Rav Nachman, were seen stirring a pot of boiling hot water with their hands. And nothing was happening to them. Rav Elish said that, wow, like women, Shlomo HaMelech said, there's such tzaddikim amongst women, like there was like an anti-women, being that kind of a level of a balmofes that you could stir boiling hot water with your bare hands. I never saw this, women with asbestos hands. So he said, Shlomo HaMelech in Kehillas wasn't so correct. You see that the daughters of Rav Nachman were holding on a very high madrega, stirring boiling hot water with their hands. The Gemara says a story like this. Gramaluhu milsa, a story happened, Vishtavyan. Vishtavai iunami bahadai. All of a sudden there was a hostage crisis. And Rav Elish and the daughters of Rav Nachman were all kidnapped together. They were in Narda. I don't know who kidnapped them, I don't know the political situation, but they were kidnapped. Like, we know what that is, right? A hostage. And this, by the way, this Gemara is all in the sugya of hostages. What are you allowed to do with hostages, or what are you not allowed to do with hostages? And the Pashut Pshat is you're not supposed to do too much with hostages because whatever you do is bad. Like if you're gonna give a lot of money, you're increasing terror. If you're gonna save them, so they're gonna take it out on the other hostages. Like if you're gonna miraculously do it in Tebi and save the hostages, so now they're going to get angry and kill the other hostages. So the Gemara goes back and forth about what he's supposed to do, which was a common thing, to take hostages and really leaves it with no great, there's no really good thing you have to do, just leave it to Hashem. I'm not passing the world shilos, I'm just saying that's what the Gemara says there in Sanhedrin. So the Gemara tells a story like this. They all get kidnapped. Yom Echad, Elish is sitting in captivity, and next to him is sitting, Rashi says, another captive, a goy, and he seems to understand the language of birds. Asa Urva, and he's talking to the bird. He's the bird man of Alcatraz here. he's sitting in captivity, and this bird comes, this Orev comes, and he starts to talk to the guy next to him. Also, Urva, a raven, Kakarile, Amarle, my kamar. So Elish says to the non-Jew, he says, what's the raven talking about? Amarle, so he says what the raven is talking about, what the raven is saying, he's saying, Elish barach, Elish barach. Elish, run. Like the bird, the little bird, he told me, the bird is telling me to tell you that just run. Now, running is a very dangerous thing, and do I trust the guy next to me that's what the bird said? You can do a lot of shtick. So do I trust him that that's really what the bird said, or is he just trying to get me killed over here? And secondly, do I trust the raven? So he said, Urva shakarahu. Ravens don't tell the truth. There's a aside for you. We're not saimich, we're not saimich on anything a raven says.
So what kind of bird?
Yeah. Everyone just said now, ravens don't tell the truth. Noah. Where do you see Noah? Raven didn't tell the truth.
He was suspicious, he accused Noah. So, okay.
You see, the raven didn't want to do it. Shlichus, raven didn't tell the truth.
That is aggressive. Ravens are aggressive birds.
They saved Elio and Navi. Yeah. But anyways, he said ravens, this Rav said, ravens don't tell the truth. Okay, Adahachi, meantime, they're sitting there, Asa Yonah. I'm sure this all has like very deep, back to Tevas Noach, where we needed a Yeshua there also. But in the meantime comes the dove. The Kakari and starts talking to the guy. Abrele, my cover, what is the dove saying? Abrele, Elish barach, Elish, run. Run for your life. Amar, so Rabbi said, Knesset Yisrael, ki Yonah Masila. That Knesset Yisrael, Yonah is already a legitimate bird, integrity, and you see that the Jewish people, ki Yonah Masila means Meshula, that you see the Knesset Yisrael is like a Yonah, so maybe I should listen to this. Shema mina misrachas linisha. And he said, okay, I could be samach al anes, little bird said, I could be samach on an S. Amar, and he said, I'm going to run. I'm going to run because the Yonah said so. Amar, so he says like this, Ezel echazeh, now I don't want to forget about my fellow captives, the benasei de Rav Nachman, the daughters of Rav Nachman, ikaimen b'hamanusa adrino, and if they're still from, I will bring them back in my nest, in my miracle, so to speak. I will include them in my miracle. Amar, and he said, Nashi komil de Yislu Sadran lahadade ba'ade kisei. I'm going to go over, listen to what they're talking about in what they think is the most private, safe place to talk. And Shabidu de Ka'amrid, and he heard them talking, Ade Guvrin, Nardoi Guvrin. Listen, we have husbands in Nardoi, and we have husbands, these are Rav Nachman's daughters. We have husbands in Nardoi, but we also have husbands here, the Goyim. And let's tell our captors to take us further away, because we don't want to be saved. In other words, they went off to Derech in captivity. Come, Arak. So Elish said, I'm out of here. And come, Arak. It was him, and following him was the other prisoner, the non-Jew. Rashi says a boat came by, and Elish jumped onto the boat, and he was saved. He was saved from captivity. The other guys tried to follow him in the miracle, and they arrested him and they killed him. When he came back home to the Beis Medrash, again, remember this is Rava's Beis Medrash, he said, they were spinning what he called stirring the water with the boiling water with their hands. It was kishuv. It's kishuv because there's no way that these women are tzidkanias. Now, it's a fantastic story. A very intriguing story, and there's a lot of deeper rabazim to it. But I think B'Shem the Gra, he says that's why Rava, whenever he was talking to Rav Elish, he said to him, Be'ita achishana, that you know what it means to have a miracle when it's before the time. It was really like you're in captivity. There should have been the regular Mahalach Hadvarim, and because of the birds and the whole story, Be'ita Achishana, so Rava reminded him that there are two stages in a man's salvation, two possibilities, I should say, in a person's salvation, and it can be that Yeshua can be Be'ita, can be Achishana. So, Tzadok says here a little bit later, he says that in the Lechama he was giving him a little bit of Musar also. And the Musar that he was giving to Elish was, look, I saved you, and out of your safety net, you're in this Beis Medrash over here where you're going to be safe. You're not going to make any big mistakes because you're in the Beis Medrash of Rava and Narda, but you should have been learning more. And you know that there's such a thing of Achishena, even though it's not Be'ita. And that's why Rava specifically said it to him. So, nice shot in Shas. There's more to say. Let me tell you one last thing. Rabbi Yaacov Haber is like a last thing to go home with. Rabbi Yaacov Haber, Gilead Shas, right on the side. He asked the Kasha, he says, we find the Gemara B'Mutzia that Rav Elish understood birds. It says, Elish Tzadika Hava. The Gemara says he was a big tzaddik. Rabbi Yaacov Haber has a question. Sheba Aruch, I think, that he understood. And we find that one of the things that's the Tzidkas of Rav Elish, they understood the birds. So what's he keep on? Has to have this guy next to him who's interpreting the birds, and this one I do believe, this one I don't believe. Like what's the here it says that he doesn't understand birds, and here it says he does understand birds. So I once heard in my ears from Rav Chaim Shulevich, that's how he was talking about Bilam. And he said that when you have a nagias, you can understand birds, but you're going to hear what you want to hear. And he was choshesh, Rabbi Elish was choshesh, that he's, like when you want to hear something, you're hearing the birds saying it. Like all the Hashgacha Pratis and this is the Reb Chaim put it, all the Hashgacha Pratis, and look at all the miracles and all. But ultimately, it's a deep Musar idea. Ultimately, all it's doing is your brain playing tricks on you to get you to think that what you're doing is the right thing. And so Rav Elish did not listen to himself. So Rav Chaim says that the Aruch's kasha, Rabbi Akiva Eiger's kasha, is no kasha because, of course, he understood the words of the birds, but at the same time, he knew not to listen to what he understood because he might be misinterpreting the whole thing. Okay, tachlis be'ita achishana means we should all have a Yeshua before it's the time to have a Yeshua.
It's not saying Yeshua will happen before it's come because we cannot survive until it happens.
No. It's saying I can spare, the way I'm understanding it is, I can spare you all the difficulties, possibly, that you don't have to come to Be'ita where there's no other way to do it, except for me saving you. Well, so the story of Elish was, we see...
The time would have been if it was Makayim that this money went to the wrong person, that would have been
That would have been, no. I think the story of Elish, that would have been like you lost. But you see, Hashem saves you before you lost. That's Be'ita. Hashem put me here. But better would have been Achishana. That's what I'm understanding for the Rashi. Better would have been if you would have learned upright shot, and you wouldn't have to come to the place where I'm saving you at the end of the whole story. But that from a Talmud Chacham and a Tzaddik like this Elish, the money would go to the wrong person. That's not going to happen. Whether it's Be'ita or whether it's Achishana, that's not going to happen. Yeah.
So in order, let's say in this case, in both cases, whether it's Be'ita or Achishana, he gets the right shot. But Achishana would have been he got it himself, and Be'ita is forced.
Okay.
So
I'm saying the right thing will happen.
Right.
Like it could be another right thing would happen, that the bank transfer doesn't go through. What Rav was saying, right now I'm your Be'ita. So you're protected, you have a safety net. But you messed up.
So in the Geula, if shouldn't it also be that the Achishana it would be where we understand in Isach in
yeah. So your question, how are you Zocha to Achishana? So I think that the Pashut answer is that we get to the Be'ita without having to get to the Be'ita. So if we would understand that before we're like Mukhrach to say that, so then we could have the Gula, because that's the Tikkun, finally. So when the Gemara says that, by the way, I think the Gemara is talking about Achishana. That, in other words, the prediction will be that Klal Yisrael will come to a place. If you look at the Gemara, the Ikvus of the Mashiach, you'll come to a place where you'll say, Ein lanu lishayin ala avinu shebashamayim, because the Pnei Hadar is Pnei HaKelev and all those terrible things that are going to happen. And then you'll be Zochet Achishana.
Without the...
But because you'll come to such a level of B'tachon.
But how would that happen? Meaning...
But
without the Tsaros.
Without the final Tsaros. Look, in other words, the whole Nevuah, let's say the whole Nevuah of Yeshayahu, where he talks about this time of light shining from us in the middle of darkness, can happen in two ways. Either it can become such darkness and such fog, and we'll understand that and we'll bring out the light, or it'll become such darkness and such fog that we will disappear, and right before we disappear, Hashem will give us a light. So I'm understanding what he was saying is it could be Isarusa de Lasata, Isarusa de Leila. Yeah, Zoich with a lot of pain.
Even
so Zocha sounds to me like something that the person does. When you're Zocha in something, as opposed to like this is what's happening to you, when you're Zocha in something, it means that's something that you did something. You have a schus.
Already amongst those that are Zocha to see the Gula.
Right. Meaning, but you have a schus. In other words, you've done something like schus avos. You've done